Christy Michelle Scott was born in 1978 in Alabama. She lived in Russellville with her husband and their 2 sons. To neighbors, she looked like a caring mom, but her family history had several unexplained fires. One happened at her father's home, another at her grandmother's. In 2005, her own house caught fire twice in 1 week. No one proved those blazes were set on purpose. In the early hours of August 16, 2008, fire broke out at the Scott home. Christy and her younger son escaped and ran to a neighbor's house for help. Their older son, 6-year-old Mason, who had autism, did not get out. Firefighters found him in his bedroom. An autopsy showed soot in his lungs and high carbon monoxide levels in his system. That meant he was still breathing when the fire started. Investigators also saw that the smoke alarm had been taken down, but it was not broken. This detail pointed to someone removing it on purpose. They then learned Christy had taken out a $100,000 insurance policy on Mason just 12 hours before the fire. She also gave him extra cough syrup that night. Those facts suggested it was all planned. Officials charged Christy with 3 counts that carried the state's highest punishment. They said she caused Mason's passing for money, did so while setting a fire on purpose, and the victim was under 14, too. Her trial opened on June 12, 2009, in Franklin County. Prosecutors laid out the insurance purchase and her history of suspicious fires. Her defense team said the blaze might have been an accident. Perhaps a faulty television cord sparked it. But on July 8, 2009, the jury found her responsible on all charges. During sentencing, 7 jurors voted to lock her away for life, while 5 disagreed. Judge Dempsey overrode the jury because he felt the planned nature of the act and the financial motive outweighed any reasons for a lesser sentence. He described the taking of Mason's life as especially cruel, which in Alabama law can justify capital punishment. Christy's lawyers then filed several appeals. They argued for a new trial and said her original counsel did not do enough. In 2012, the Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals kept her conviction. The Alabama Supreme Court did the same in 2014. The next year, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to review her case. As of today, she remains in the section of Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women reserved for inmates awaiting capital punishment. This case became one of the last in Alabama where a judge could ignore a jury's recommendation. In 2017, the state ended that power, but it did not apply to past cases. Christy's sentence stayed in place. Up next is a very different case, one where a mother's own words were used against her. Melissa Lucio was born in 1968 in Texas. She is a Latina mother of 14 children. Her childhood was extremely difficult. She experienced physical and emotional mistreatment at home, including unwanted touching. By 2007, she was living in Harlingen, Texas, with her partner, Robert Alvarez, and several of their children. On February 17, 2007, Melissa called 911 after finding her 2-year-old daughter, Mariah Alvarez, not breathing. Paramedics arrived and saw bruises all over Mariah's body. At the hospital, doctors confirmed that Mariah had passed away. An autopsy showed a broken arm, a head injury, and deep bruising inside her body. Melissa told police that Mariah had slipped down the stairs 2 days earlier. A few of her older children said the same thing. Right after Mariah's passing, police questioned Melissa for 7 hours. She was pregnant with twins at the time and wasn't allowed to eat or drink. Officers kept pressing her to say she had hurt Mariah. Eventually, Melissa said, "I guess I did it." Prosecutors treated that as her admission of guilt. Later, experts said her statement was forced and could not be trusted. In 2008, Melissa went to trial in Texas. The case against her rested largely on her coerced statement and on a medical examiner who said Mariah's injuries matched repeated harm. Melissa's defense team did not bring in their own experts or share her history of mistreatment. The jury found her guilty, and she was given the harshest possible sentence. Over the next several years, her lawyers filed appeal after appeal. They argued that her statement to police was not reliable and that new medical findings pointed to an accidental injury. In 2019, a federal appeals court initially overturned her conviction, saying she hadn't been allowed to fully present her side. But later that ruling was reversed, so she remained under sentence. In April 2022, just days before she was to face her penalty, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals put a pause on her case and ordered a full review. In October 2024, Judge Arturo Nelson declared that Melissa was actually not responsible for her daughter's passing. He recommended throwing out her conviction and her sentence. Now, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals will make the final decision. As of May 1st, 2025, Melissa Lucio is still held at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas, awaiting that decision. The next woman wanted a baby so badly, she was willing to cross a line no one imagined. This isn't a story of a mother hurting her own child, but it's one you won't forget. Montgomery was born on February 27, 1968, in Kansas. She grew up facing severe mistreatment. Her mother struggled with heavy drinking. From a young age, Montgomery endured physical harm, emotional cruelty, and unwanted physical contact. Her stepfather and his friends forced her into acts she did not want. Her mother allowed these things to happen. She was traumatized for life. When she was 18, Montgomery married her stepbrother to escape home. She went on to have 4 children. In 1990, doctors tied her fallopian tubes. After that, she claimed to be pregnant several times. Experts say she may have done that to get attention or to cope with her pain. On December 16, 2004, Montgomery left Melbourne, Kansas, and traveled to Skidmore, Missouri. She told Bobby Joe Stinnett, a 23-year-old dog breeder who was 8 months along, that she wanted to adopt a puppy. The two had met online because they both raised dogs. After entering Stinnett's home, Montgomery came at her, knocking her unconscious. She then took the baby from Stinnett's body with a sharp kitchen object. When Stinnett briefly woke up, Montgomery stopped her from breathing until she passed away. Montgomery left with the newborn, later named Victoria Joe, and tried to pretend the baby was her own. Montgomery was arrested in Kansas the next day. She admitted what she had done. DNA tests confirmed that the baby was Stinnett's. At her 2007 trial, Montgomery's defense said she had a condition called pseudocyesis, where a person believes they are pregnant. They argued this false belief drove her to take the baby. The prosecution said Montgomery planned the event and knew right from wrong. The court decided Montgomery understood her actions and their consequences. In 2008, she received a capital sentence for taking a child that led to the mother's loss of life. She appealed, pointing again to her mental health issues and past trauma, but all appeals were denied. After several delays, her sentence was carried out on January 13, 2021, at the U.S. Penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana, using an injection. She was the first woman to have a federal capital sentence carried out since 1953. When officials asked if she had any final words, Montgomery said, "No." The next mother knew the pain of burning alive. So why did it happen again? This time to her son. Nicole Drwas was born in 1975 in Ohio. When she was 4, her pajamas caught fire and she suffered serious burns. She needed more than 60 surgeries while growing up. A settlement from that accident gave her regular payments. She received both monthly income and occasional lump sums. In 2003, Nicole lived in Lorain, Ohio. She was raising her son Jacob, who was 4 years old. On August 27, 2003, a fire broke out in Nicole's home. She made it out safely. Jacob did not. Rescuers found Jacob's remains inside the burned house. Nicole first said she tried to save him. She claimed thick smoke blocked her path, yet she had no soot on her clothes and smelled no smoke. That led investigators to doubt her story. Jacob's burns were so severe that the medical examiner could not determine how he passed away. But no soot was in his lungs. That suggested Jacob had already passed before the fire started. Investigators also found traces of gasoline in the house. Someone used it to start the fire on purpose. Before the fire, Nicole had been giving Jacob pills who were prescribed for her niece. She instructed teenage babysitters to give these pills to Jacob each night. They said this happened often. The public prosecutor asked why a mother would give her child strong medicine repeatedly. The answer was that Nicole wanted Jacob to stay quiet. When that stopped working, she took more extreme steps. In 2005, a jury found Nicole guilty of several serious charges. They included causing Jacob's passing in an aggravated way, hiding evidence, inflicting physical harm, and setting the fire. The jury chose the most severe punishment available. In 2008, the Ohio Supreme Court agreed Nicole was guilty. However, the court erased the punishment because jurors were not told that a single juror could block the harshest outcome. In 2010, Nicole received a new sentence. She will spend the rest of her life in prison with no chance of release. Nicole is now held at the Ohio Reformatory for Women in Marysville, Ohio. Her case has been featured on TV. It appeared in an episode of the show Deadly Women called Bury Their Babies. It also came up on the Radio Rental podcast. Now meet Tiffany Nicole Moss, whose cruel neglect of her stepdaughter shocked everyone in Georgia. Born on July 20th, 1983, Tiffany Nicole Moss worked as a preschool teacher in Georgia. She married Emmon Moss in July 2009. They had 2 children together. Emmon also had a daughter, Imani Gabrielle Moss, from an earlier relationship. Imani's birth mother gave up her rights because she struggled with addiction. That left Eamon with full care of Imani. Tiffany and Imani did not get along. Their relationship became harmful. In 2013, Tiffany began harsh mistreatment and extreme neglect of her stepdaughter. She locked 10-year-old Imani in a bedroom at their apartment in Lawrenceville. Imani was given almost no food. The room was dirty and unsafe. Over time, Imani's body grew very weak. She weighed just 32 pounds at the end. That is about the weight of a typical toddler. Meanwhile, Tiffany continued to feed and look after her own 2 children. She even sent Eamon photos of meals she cooked for them while refusing to feed Imani. Prosecutors said Tiffany resented Imani. They said she blamed Imani for a job loss in 2010 after Tiffany was convicted for a similar case of mistreatment. That anger may have driven the worsening harm that led to Imani's passing. On October 28, 2013, Imani's body gave out from lack of food. Tiffany and Emmon then tried to hide what happened. They placed Imani's body in a trash can. They tried to burn it. When that effort failed, they left the trash can near their apartment building. Emmon was arrested soon after someone found the trash can. In 2015, he admitted he was responsible for Imani's passing and for hiding her body. He agreed to testify against Tiffany. He received a life sentence in prison with no chance for release. Tiffany represented herself at her trial in April 2019. She did not speak in opening or closing statements. She did not call any witnesses. She did not question the state's witnesses. The jury found her guilty of causing Imani's passing on purpose. They also found her guilty of letting another felony lead to Imani's passing. They found her guilty of severe cruelty to a child. And they found her guilty of hiding Imani's body. No one knows exactly why Tiffany chose to defend herself and stay silent. Observers noted her choice may have shaped how the jury viewed her regret and her responsibility. On May 1, 2019, the court gave Tiffany the state's highest punishment, to be carried out by a strong medical procedure. At that time, she was the only woman in Georgia facing that sentence. The jury called the harm done to Imani outrageously vile, horrible, or inhuman. Judge George Hutchinson set the procedure between June 7th and June 14th, 2019. But it was put on hold while Tiffany appealed. When asked if she had any last words, Tiffany replied, "No, sir. There is no record of her requesting any special meal before the procedure. The next mother wasn't home the night it happened. But what they found inside raised many questions. But before we move on, consider liking and subscribing for more stories like these." Robin Lee Rowe was born in 1957. She had 2 children, Joshua and Tabitha, from a previous marriage before meeting Randy Rowe. On February 10, 1992, a fire swept through a 2-unit house in Boise, Idaho. Inside were Randy Rowe, 34, and his children Joshua, 10, and Tabitha, 8. They all lost their lives to carbon monoxide poisoning. Robin Lee Rowe was not at home that night. She was staying with her friend Joan McHugh. Investigators found traces of a liquid that made the fire spread faster. They also saw that the smoke alarms had been turned off. A fan had been left on to push the smoke around. Rowe's history included other family tragedies. In 1977, her 15-month-old daughter passed away, officially from sudden infant death syndrome. In 1980, her 6-year-old son passed in a cabin fire in California. After that fire, she collected $28,000 from an insurance policy. Just weeks before the Boise blaze, Roe took out insurance policies totaling more than $276,000 on her husband and children. Those steps pointed to a planned act. On February 13, 1992, she was arrested. She faced charges of first-degree intentional homicide for each family member and of aggravated arson. In 1993, a jury found her guilty on every count. On December 16, 1993, Judge Alan Schwartzman gave her the maximum penalty. He said her actions were a final betrayal of motherhood. Since then, Roe has asked for new hearings. She has said her legal team did not represent her properly and that she has brain health issues. Every appeal has been denied. She is the only woman in Idaho held among people awaiting capital punishment. She is being housed at the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center. To the world, the next was just another troubled daughter. To her mother, she was something to erase. Lisa Leanne Graham was born in 1967. She lived in Phoenix City, Alabama. In her town, people knew her as a business owner's wife. At home, she was a mother and a spouse. Behind the scenes, her relationship with her daughter, Stephanie Shea Graham, was very tense. Stephanie was 20 years old in 2007. She'd faced charges before for possession of illegal substances and taking things without permission. Even so, she was trying to turn her life around. Lisa and Shea argued often and disagreed about many things. On July 5, 2007, Steo Haney's body was found on a quiet dirt road in Russell County, Alabama. She had multiple gunshot wounds. The community was shocked by how severe the incident was. Investigators soon looked at Lisa. They found proof she had convinced a family friend, Kenneth Walton, to carry out the shooting. Walton said Lisa gave him the gun and told him exactly where and when to do it. He said her motive was to gain money and to free herself from the burden of her daughter's troubles. Why would a mother plan such an act? Prosecutors argued Lisa saw Shea as too much of an emotional and financial strain. They said Lisa believed her life would improve if Shea were gone. Lisa was arrested on July 8, 2007. On October 20, 2007, she was formally charged with a capital-level offense. Her first trial in September 2012 ended without a verdict. A second trial began in February 2015. Walton's testimony proved key. He described how Lisa drove Shea to the spot where he was waiting and handed over the weapon. In March 2015, the jury found Lisa guilty. On November 18, 2015, the judge gave her the harshest penalty allowed by state law. In July 2019, the state's highest court confirmed the conviction, saying the evidence was strong. Throughout the proceedings, Lisa stayed calm and spoke little. Observers saw no clear sign that she felt regret or admitted responsibility. As of May 1, 2025, Lisa Graham remains in an Alabama prison, awaiting the final outcome of her sentencing process. Heather Level Keaton was born in 1988. She was a visually impaired scholarship student at Spring Hill College in Alabama. During her time at the college, she began a relationship with John Drwas, who had custody of his 2 young children, Natalie and Chase. In 2010, a case in Alabama shocked many. Heather Level Keaton and John Drwas were linked to actions that caused the loss of life for his 2 young children, Natalie and Chase. Natalie was 4. Chase was 3. Before these events, little is known about Level Keaton's background. The couple treated the children with cruelty. In March 2010, Natalie was wrapped in duct tape and placed inside a suitcase for about 12 hours. She did not survive. Her body was later found in a wooded area near Citronelle, Alabama. 3 months later, Chase was wrapped and taped to a broom handle in the corner of their bedroom overnight. He, too, did not survive. His body was found in the woods near Van Cleve, Mississippi. State lawyers also said Level Keaton had put antifreeze into the children's food. Why would someone do this to innocent kids? According to state lawyers, jealousy played a big part. Level Keaton felt jealous of the time Drwas spent with his children and with their birth mother. That jealousy turned into cruel treatment, which led to a tragic loss. Keaton was arrested in December 2010. At first, she faced charges for causing serious harm and for mishandling a body. Later, the state made those charges even more serious. In 2015, a jury found her guilty. They recommended the harshest sentence for Chase's case by an 11-1 vote. For Natalie's case, they chose a lesser punishment. She was the first woman in Mobile County to receive that harshest sentence, which was to be carried out by injection. During her trial, she did not show emotion. In 2020, her harshest sentence was set aside because the judge had not let her speak on her own behalf before deciding. In 2021, she faced a new hearing and again received the harshest sentence. She appealed, but in 2023, the U.S. Supreme Court chose not to review her case, so the sentence stayed in place. As of May 1st, 2025, Heather Keaton remains at the Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Alabama. She is one of 5 women there with the same harsh sentence, still waiting for their final outcome. Next comes a mother, a toddler, and a story that didn't quite add up. Belinda Janette Magana was born in 1986. She gained national attention due to her involvement in a tragic criminal case. Belinda Janette Magana was 23 and a mother of 2. Her youngest son, Malachi, was just 2 years old. On May 10th, 2009, Belinda told police that Malachi had been taken during a family barbecue. She said he disappeared without a trace. A few days later, his body was found in San Bernardino County. The report showed he had been burned with scalding liquid and struck on the head. Police soon arrested Belinda and her partner, 37-year-old Naresh Michael Nareen. Both were charged with first-degree homicide, child mistreatment, and other offenses. Prosecutors shared text messages and notes. They said Belinda treated Malachi differently from her other children. Malachi had been conceived after someone acted against Belinda's will. Several relatives spoke about signs of past mistreatment. In court, the prosecution argued that Belinda and Mr. Nareen had hurt Malachi on purpose. They also said the two had made up the story about him being taken. Belinda's lawyers said she had suffered her own hardships and did not mean to harm her son. In January 2015, the jury reached its verdict. Both Belinda and Mr. Nareen were found guilty on every count. The same jury recommended that Belinda face the highest possible penalty. Today, she remains held in a California prison. Under that sentence, Jessica Marie Han, previously known as Jason Michael Han, was born in 1973. In 1999, her 6-week-old son Jason passed after blunt force trauma to the head. Police arrested her soon after. A jury later found her guilty, and she was given a 30-year prison term. 2 years later, in 2001, her 10-month-old daughter Montana was found in a Tupperware container. She had suffered the same kind of head injuries. This case became known as the Tupperware baby. In 2013, Han went on trial for Montana's demise. She admitted she had harmed both children. Her lawyers said she had serious mental health issues at the time. The jury found her guilty of first-degree charges. At sentencing, the court looked at her earlier conviction for Jason's passing. The jury recommended the ultimate punishment. In February 2014, Judge James Hawkins agreed. He described her actions as cold and cruel. He also denied a defense request to change her term to life without any chance of release. While serving her time, Han began her gender transition. In 2019, Marin County records show she legally changed her name and gender markers. As of early 2019, she was held at the Central California Women's Facility, which houses transgender women. Next is a mother whose bad temper led her to an unthinkable act. Kimberly Cargill was born in 1966 in Jones County, Mississippi. She later moved to White House, Texas. There, she became known for sudden outbursts and troubled relationships. She married 3 times and had 4 sons. In court, her ex-husbands and children spoke about her mistreatment. They said she would choke and hit family members. On some occasions, she locked her sons in their rooms for hours. In 2010, she faced a child custody hearing set for June 23rd. She feared her babysitter, Cherry Walker, then 39 and with mental challenges, would speak against her. To stop that, Cargill invited Walker to dinner. Once they were alone, Cargill cut off her air supply. Afterwards, she set the body on fire to hide the incident. The next day, police found the burned remains. Weeks later, Cargill was arrested and charged with the most serious offense. At her 2012 trial, she said Walker had suffered a seizure and that she panicked. She claimed she burned the body to hide the accident. Forensic tests, however, showed Walker passed from lack of air. Mental health experts diagnosed Cargill with borderline personality disorder, plus antisocial and narcissistic traits. They still found her able to face trial. Her sons and ex-husbands gave more details of her bad behavior. The jury studied all the evidence and found her guilty of the top charge. On May 31, 2012, they unanimously recommended she receive the harshest sentence. Judge Jack Skeen Jr. handed down that sentence on June 7, 2012. Since then, Cargill has been held at the Patrick O'Daniel unit. She has appealed several times. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals denied her requests in 2014, 2017, and 2020. The U.S. Supreme Court also refused to review her case in 2017. As of today, no date has been set to carry out the sentence. Christina Marie Riggs was born on September 2, 1971, in Lawton, Oklahoma. Her childhood was difficult. She experienced inappropriate and harmful contact from both a stepbrother and a neighbor. Traumas that left deep emotional scars. By the time she was 14, Christina had already started drinking and smoking heavily, trying to escape pain she didn't know how to process. At 16, she became pregnant. Wanting more for her child than she felt she could give, she made the painful decision to place the baby for adoption. After high school, Christina trained to become a nurse and earned her license as a practical nurse. She found work first in home health care and later at a Veterans Administration hospital, helping care for others while quietly carrying her own struggles. In 1991, Christina became pregnant again. Her son, Justin Dalton Thomas, was born in June 1992. The father wasn't involved, and Christina raised Justin on her own until she met John Riggs. They married in 1993 and a year later welcomed a daughter, Shelby Alexis Riggs, in December 1994. In 1995, the family moved to Sherwood, Arkansas. But behind closed doors, the marriage began to unravel. When John hit Justin, Christina made a decision. She ended the marriage and filed for divorce, choosing to protect her children over holding the family together. On November 4, 1997, Christina made a devastating decision. She planned to take both her children's lives, and then her own. She gathered medications from her workplace and a local pharmacy, preparing what she believed would be a way to carry out the act quietly. That night, she gave both Justin and Shelby something to make them sleep. Once they were drowsy, she attempted to end 5-year-old Justin's life with an injection meant to stop his heart. But it didn't work as intended. It caused him pain without bringing a quick end. In a desperate attempt to ease his suffering, she gave him more medication. But when that failed, she placed a pillow over his face and held it there until he stopped moving. Then, she turned to her 2-year-old daughter, Shelby, and did the same. Afterward, she placed their bodies on her bed and covered them with a blanket. She wrote notes saying she planned to end her own life. She swallowed 28 pills and injected herself with the same medication as she used for her children. The injection burned her arm but did not stop her heart. She lay unconscious until her mother found her 19 hours later. Her trial took place in June 1998. Her lawyers said she was not responsible because of serious mental illness, pointing to depression and post-traumatic stress from working near the Oklahoma City bombing site. The prosecution said she had acted out of hatred for her children. After just 55 minutes of deliberation, the jury found her guilty of 2 counts of an offense that carries the maximum penalty. During sentencing, Christina gave up her right to call witnesses and said she wished to face the penalty. She later dropped her appeal. On May 2, 2000, the state carried out its sentence at the Cummins unit in Lincoln County, Arkansas. She passed away there. She was the first woman in Arkansas to face this penalty since 1845 and the 5th in the United States since 1976. Before that day, she spoke of her deep remorse. "No words can express just how sorry I am for taking the lives of my babies. I can't undo or erase the pain I've caused everyone who knew and loved them." Her final words were, "I love you, my babies." Next, meet Rhonda Bell Martin, whose slow pattern of poisonings went unnoticed for years. Rhonda Bell Tomley was born on November 4, 1906, in Lucedale, Mississippi. She grew up in Mobile, Alabama. Her father worked in a railroad yard. She left school after 7th grade. When she was 15, she ran off with a lodger at her mother's boarding house. That was the first of several marriages that later drew attention. From 1937 to 1951, several people close to Rhonda passed in puzzling ways. Among them were her mother, Mary Frances Grimes, 2 of her husbands, and 5 of her 7 young children, all under age 12. Doctors at first said they passed from natural causes. Rhonda collected small insurance sums that barely covered each funeral. In 1953, her 5th husband, Ronald Martin, who had once been her stepson, fell seriously ill and lost use of his legs. His condition led local officials to look into the pattern of illnesses and losses around Rhonda. In March 1956, she told investigators she had mixed rat poison into food given to her mother, 2 husbands, and 3 of her children. A short time later, she withdrew her claim about 2 of the children. People wondered what drove her. Prosecutors said she wanted a bit of extra money from those small insurance payouts. Rhonda herself said she could not explain her behavior. In a note she wrote, "I can't understand it, for I had no reason whatsoever. There's definitely something wrong." She asked that her body go to a research center after her passing so experts could learn why she did this. Rhonda went to court for the 1951 case involving her 4th husband, Claude Carroll Martin. Although she had admitted to harming others, she was only found guilty of causing Claude's passing. Her lawyers asked the court to show mercy, saying she had mental health issues. The request was denied. On October 11, 1957, at Kilby Correctional Facility in Alabama, Rhonda faced the electric chair. She remained calm. She wept quietly and recited the 23rd Psalm with the prison chaplain. There was a mishap when the power was turned on before the electrodes were properly in place, so they paused and fixed things. At 12:16 a.m., she was declared no longer alive. 7 hours earlier, Rhonda's final meal was a hamburger, mashed potatoes, cinnamon rolls, and coffee. She chose not to make a last statement. Now can you imagine a mother who armed herself and struck her boys in their sleep? Socorro Susan Caro lived in Camarillo, California. She was the mother of 4 boys, Xavier Jr., known as Joey, Michael, Christopher, and a 1-year-old named GC. Her husband was Dr. Xavier Caro, a rheumatologist. Socorro met him in 1979 during an externship at his clinic. They married in 1986. Her parents lived nearby and often helped with the children. On November 22, 1999, Socorro brought a gun into the house. She aimed it at Joey, age 11, Michael, age 8, and Christopher, age 5, while they slept. None of the 3 woke up. GC, the 1-year-old, was left unharmed. Afterward, Socorro turned the gun on herself in an attempt at self-harm. She survived and was taken to a hospital. At her trial, the prosecution said Socorro wanted to punish her husband. They said he had threatened to end their marriage and to limit her spending. A prosecutor called her a calculating, very selfish woman who wanted to hurt her husband in the most horrible way imaginable. The defense said Socorro lived under strict rules and suffered serious mental health struggles. They argued she was not thinking clearly when it happened. In court, Socorro was charged with 3 counts, each one for taking a life in the first degree. She also faced extra penalties for causing more than 1 loss of life in a single event. She pleaded not guilty and said she was not responsible because of her mental state. The trial included emotional statements from family and friends and a recording of the 911 call made that night. The jury found her responsible for all the fatal actions. In April 2002, the judge imposed the most severe sentence allowed under California law. In 2019, the state's highest court agreed and confirmed that decision. Angela McCanny's name became linked to one of Oregon's worst cases of harm to a child. Her daughter, Janette Maples, suffered mistreatment for many years. That mistreatment ended when Janette passed away on December 9, 2009. What happened revealed gaps in support from both her family and the courts. Angela lived in Eugene, Oregon, with her husband, Richard McCanny, and their children. Janette, their 15-year-old daughter, was treated differently from her siblings. She was the main focus of Angela's mistreatment. It isn't clear why Angela singled out Janette, but the pattern of harm was steady and ongoing. Janette faced severe neglect. She was starved. She was beaten. She endured constant emotional pain. These actions went on for a long time. They eventually led to her passing. After Janette passed away, Angela was arrested. She was charged with a serious offense that led to her daughter's passing. In February 2011, she pleaded guilty without any agreement from prosecutors. Later, people in court questioned whether she had proper advice in making that choice. The court imposed the harshest penalty available under Oregon law. Angela became the only woman in the state to receive that outcome. In July 2019, Judge J. Burdett Pratt reversed her conviction and that penalty. He found her defense lawyers had provided poor help. They had told her to plead guilty without getting any benefits back. They also failed to present evidence of her mental health struggles and past trauma. That mistake violated her rights. In August 2020, a new outcome was set. Angela was given life in prison with no chance of release. That decision closed a 10-year legal fight. Judy Anna Lou Welty was born on April 4, 1943, in Quanah, Texas. She later went by the name Judy Buenoano. When she was 4, her mother passed away. She and her younger brother then went to live with their grandparents. A few years later, they moved to Roswell, New Mexico, to live with their father and stepmother. Judy later said she faced neglect and rough treatment at home. At 14, she threw hot grease at family members. She spent 2 months in a youth detention center. After her release, she chose to go to a reform school. She graduated there in 1960. After that, she worked as a nursing assistant. In 1961, she gave birth to her son, Michael. In 1962, Judy married James Goodyear, a U.S. Air Force sergeant. In 1971, he came back from Vietnam. He had nausea and vomiting. On September 16, 1971, he passed away. At first, his passing was blamed on natural causes. Judy then collected life insurance benefits. In 1978, her partner Bobby Joe Morris passed away in Colorado under similar symptoms. Judy again collected life insurance benefits. In 1980, Michael could no longer walk because of arsenic poisoning. During a canoe trip with his mother, he drowned. He was wearing heavy braces and no life jacket. Judy collected $20,000 from his life insurance. In 1983, her partner John Gentry was badly hurt when his car exploded. Investigators later found that Judy had been giving him capsules she called vitamins. Those pills contained arsenic and paraformaldehyde. That discovery led them to exhume James Goodyear's and Michael's graves. Both bodies showed signs of arsenic poisoning. In 1984, Judy was found guilty in her son Michael's case. She was also found guilty of trying to cause John Gentry's passing. A judge sentenced her to prison for the rest of her life. She also received an additional 12-year prison term for the attempt on Gentry. In 1985, she was found guilty in James Goodyear's case. The judge imposed the state's harshest penalty. On March 30, 1998, her sentence was carried out in the electric chair at Florida State Prison. She was the first woman in Florida to face this penalty since 1848. For her final meal, she had steamed broccoli, asparagus, strawberries, tomato wedges, and hot tea with lemon. When asked for last words, she said no, so or iswire.